Well, this is a presentation based on kind of a new direction I've taken my company a little bit, which is not a new direction because I've been doing this kind of work with Christian artists and all kinds of artists, jazz and other kinds of things, for a very long time, helping them make music income, but that's been mostly through producing them. So I've worked in Lexington, Kentucky, where I'm from, and then I eventually moved my business to Nashville and produced artists with a company called Creative Soul Records for about, for about 25 years now. But then we moved to Orlando, Florida in about 2015 because we're crazy Disney people and beach people. So we decided to move down here, and we love it. And we're so happy we live down here. And anyone who's ever been in a bubble like Nashville or LA knows what it's like to kind of live in that world. And sometimes it's a little refreshing to move outside of the bubble and live in a non-music city a little bit too. So let's talk about what I want to talk about today: 6 ways to make music income as an artist, composer, producer, or songwriter. And let's go ahead and start with number 1. And this is something that probably you didn't expect to see right off the bat, but this is something that we do need to talk about. And all of these 6 things I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about more than 6, but these main 6, I think everybody should be doing all of these. And I think you shouldn't just be doing, I know being an artist is what we're all used to being. I mean, that's what we start out as. That's the easy first thing. And then we branch out into other things, and it turns into licensing, or it turns into production, or it turns into songwriting, or whatever. But music for film, TV, and advertising is something I've been kind of changing my business over to for about 3 or 4 years now, and kind of started a whole new music kind of business in this sync licensing space. And really, I called it Positive Spin Songs, and we've been creating music in that for about 4 years now, and this year has been a very good year for getting some stuff into music libraries, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But music for film and TV and advertising, sync licensing is music for use, not for you. And this is a kind of a weird concept for a lot of artists who are used to it being all about who they are as an artist. And music, this kind of sync licensing or music for other kinds of uses is really more use for a film or TV show, advertising, gaming. They call it sync licensing because it's synced to an image. Some of you know this backwards and forwards, but some of you have never heard much about it before. And it's a way to make passive income with your music by getting it into libraries, by getting it into TV shows that perhaps go on for years and get many plays and bring you income. And we'll talk about that income in a minute. It can be artist music. Surprisingly, they're looking for artists' music in television and movies and all these kinds of things, because a lot of times they do need that kind of, you've been watching a Lifetime show or something, and all of a sudden there is a montage, and there's somebody singing, and there's a pop song that plays. And so they do look for artist music. Instrumental is more likely what is going to be heard in most things inside sync licensing, but I am finding that artist music is just as popular. So, and then of course there's trailer music that you hear when you go see a movie, or when you see a trailer at the movie theaters or on TV. You hear this dramatic, cinematic kind of music that builds and drops and builds and drops and does all this kind of stuff that's real dramatically to get you to go see Avengers or whatever they want you to go see. So these and many more kinds, I'm not going to get into all the styles, but these are some of the kinds of musics that are used in sync licensing. And one of the crazy things about this is probably one of the more lucrative parts of the music industry today, and that is mainly because of the way the music industry has changed, with CDs kind of going out of vogue and sales going out of vogue, and then the online Spotify and streaming type of thing now becoming the main way people are getting their music out. What we try to do with sync licensing is create music that can be used for a use, and for all licensing. And because I'm going to get into another kind of licensing after this, but we're trying to make music that can be used, and we're trying to pitch that music to those to people who need it. Now, who do we pitch this to? Well, there's a lot of different ways to pitch music into these things, but usually you're going to be pitching to one of these types of things. Music libraries, which is most of what my experience is in, which can be exclusive music libraries that no one else can have that or sync that to a TV show or a film except for this one library, or non-exclusive, which means that they're just looking for a song and it can be used in other spaces even after this even after you've gotten into this use. Then there are the people who are probably finding those songs at those music libraries, and those are music supervisors. And if you don't know what a music supervisor is, it is a person who is responsible for finding the correct music for a film, for a television show, and they are looking for the sometimes even for games and things like that. There are music supervisors. They're called other names sometimes, but these are people whose job it is to find the right song for what the director wants. And a lot of times their main job is to replace music that's already been found for a program or for a film, but they can't use it because it's too dang expensive. So they've got to go find some indie tune or some other kind of song that's less expensive because there's only so much money in a film or a television show budget. Then there are sync agents, which are kind of a mix between a publisher and a music supervisor, but they're more likely working, or kind of a mix between a publisher and an agent and a manager, because they're actually working more with music artists and or composers. But a lot of them seem to like music artists more that right, because a lot of shows these days want to find that really personality-driven song by an indie band or an indie artist. And so a lot of times that's what they're looking for, and sync agents especially are looking for those kinds of things. Then there's places that are a little bit different, like taxi music, and I'm not going to get into that. I do have a video about that on the Make Music Income channel. If you're interested in kind of my thoughts on taxi music, it's a way, like a taxi, to get you to the opportunities that you see above, to music libraries, to music supervisors. Some people love it, some people don't like it. It is a pay-for-play type of situation. So you have to pay a pretty big yearly fee to be part of that, and then you can be part of their briefs and pitch to those briefs. But and then there is, so like I said, I have a whole video about that, so I'm not going to talk about that any further, but you can see that on my YouTube channel. And then Crucial Music, which I just kind of put up here because in a recent interview with a guy, he got some really decent some placements through Crucial Music. They are not pay-for-play, and they're royalty-free actually, and they only do royalty-free stuff. But he got a rather big placement in the movie The Blind Side. If you remember, The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock, he got a placement in that, and that has turned into a lot more work for him. So let's talk about how the money works in sync licensing. Basically, you have two kinds of royalty income in sync licensing. Basically, you get money in two different ways. There are two different kinds of royalties that pay with sync licensing. That's another cool thing about it. There is what they call the sync license, or we also known as an upfront fee. And this is what is paid by a television show or a film or an advertiser or whoever's making a game or whatever to get the license to use it. And that's an upfront fee. Now, that doesn't always mean you get it paid up front. It's kind of a misleading term sometimes, but the fee that's one fee you get. And usually if you get it through a library or you get it through some other kind of way, a sync agent or whatever, there's a 50-50 split on that sync license, that upfront pay. And that can be paid, usually it's paid twice a year. My libraries paid, all three of the libraries I'm in right now pay 2 times a year. And so, like if I got a TV show license right now, it may not pay me till June, possibly, for that upfront fee that I'm getting. Now, the second payment that it pays is to your PRO, which would be BMI, Ascap, or CSAC, or if you're outside of the U.S., in Canada, it's SOCAN, and in other countries, there's different PROs. But you can also belong to BMI if you're outside the United States as well. But that payment would be paid, if it was a TV show especially, it will be paid to your PRO in 3 quarters from airing or filing, because sometimes they have to file a sheet that goes to BMI that tells them that the song was used and how many seconds were used, minutes were used, all the kinds of things. And then that is calculated by BMI and paid out to your or whatever your PRO is. It's paid out to that account, and you will get that after airing after about 9 months, most likely. Or it could be longer, it could be 12 months, just depending on how things pay in the quarter. So those are the 2 kinds of payments you get from this. And I'm not going to go too far into all this because I got a lot of stuff to cover. But it seems like there was another slide. No. Okay, so that was basically sync licensing, and that's if that's something you're interested in. I have full videos about this on my YouTube channel, much more, and you can find much more on YouTube in general, just by searching around for sync licensing. Or my friend Jesse, who has a site called Sync My Music, which is fantastic, and he really covers sync licensing completely in detail. But that's basically one of the income streams that I'm really involved in now. I'm a little bit pre-money in that. In other words, I've just signed to 3 different libraries over the past 12 months. And so some are already out on one library. One album just came out on a Sony BMG library last week, and another one's coming out next week, a Christmas album, and then another one's coming after that. And so that's all well and good, but it doesn't do me any good unless somebody finds one of those songs in those libraries and decides to use it, and then I make some income from it. So that's this is all a pre-money business. Although I tell everybody, music in general is a pre-money business. Everything's a pre-money business. I mean, anything you do in music, you don't usually get paid before you do it. So sometimes you do get paid in production before you get started if you've got a reputation, but in most things, including sync licensing, you get paid after you get things signed. And occasionally there are libraries that do pay upfront fees, what they call consideration fees, for the use of your music, but then you don't get any of the back end. Or you don't get a sync license payment later. If they get you just get whatever they pay you. So lots of little things to talk about there, but we're going to move on to another thing I'm involved in right now that's making me some income, and this is royalty-free stock music licensing. Now, this is probably not something for everyone, but it's turned into a passive music income stream for me over the past 12 months. And basically, this is music that is similar to stock photos or stock videos. There is stock music, and in these stock music libraries, they're usually used by people who are making YouTube videos or making corporate presentations. You hear stuff playing in the background, and that's the kind of music that is sold in these. And you might think, well, that doesn't seem like that would be that much, but it is a lot, and there is a lot of use for these songs. The problem is it's a little bit of a saturated market, but you can still stand out if you make great music, or you might make music like I do in genres that aren't what everybody is doing. I do a lot of solo piano work, and I do a lot of jazz. And so those are kind of unique, different things that other people aren't doing. Everybody's trying to do in this particular thing. People are doing the same kind of sounding music, that corporate industrial sounding music that people put behind their YouTube videos or corporate videos. But you can see here, I've even had artist stuff do well on there. And so it just depends on the library. Now, the sales are small, but they are many. So it's a little like streaming in the fact that while you may only be getting a piece of a penny, when you get 1 million pieces of a penny, it starts to add up to something. But these are more sales that you're going to find, and there's 2 kinds of libraries, but the first kind, which sells songs by the song, can sell it from anywhere from $1 to $50 to $500, depending on the usage. But you usually split that with a library 50-50 or 60-40 or something like that. Now, that might seem low, but we're also dealing with Spotify or Apple and what they're paying us per play. And we know what that is. I don't necessarily think that Spotify is paying too low. I know just about everybody else does. Probably everybody in here thinks Spotify is paying too low, but that's a whole nother conversation. But on these, the beautiful thing about these is this is not an exclusive deal you're doing with all your songs. So the same songs can sell over and over, and the same songs can sell on multiple royalty-free libraries. So I have I have almost 200 songs or versions of songs across like 15 libraries right now. And only about 5 to 10 of those actually bring in any income, and only about 3 of them bring in any significant income. But still, the same songs are on all the same libraries for the most part. And so what I did when I started, and I'll get into that in a minute, but this is a great place for your back catalog. That's how I got started on this. We've all got CDs probably sitting in the garage somewhere. I know I do. And I've made CDs for years of my own and for clients, and it's a mess out there in that garage of CDs that's just sitting in boxes. And these libraries are pretty competitive and they're pretty big. But if you have the right music, you could find an income stream you didn't even know existed. And that's what I've found this year. It's getting to the point where, do I talk about what I made? Yeah. So I'll tell you about that in a minute. But first, we pitch to the libraries, and you have to be accepted to the libraries first. It's not much different than sync licensing. You have to find these libraries, and some of the libraries I've listed below here: Pond 5, Audio Jungle, Motion Array, which is probably the best one, and 123 RF, which is a library I've used for a long time. 123 RF and Audio Jungle or Envato, I've used both of those for stock photos, stock videos, and effects and all sorts of stuff before. And now I'm selling in them, so it's pretty cool. And I've been paid by all 4 of those at some point this year, a lot or little. But quality does matter because they're pretty hard to get into. Now, here's how I got into it. I'll just give you the rundown really quick. I took all my back catalog, which I had CDs of jazz that I had made for years, contemporary jazz, and then I had CDs of solo piano music, those are just 2 of my brands that I've put out personally. And once I put them in and got into the libraries, and it wasn't very hard to get into the libraries because I had produced most of those in Nashville with great players. And so I had a little bit of I cheated basically. And I got into the libraries that I wanted to get into. And then once I was in, I put up everything. I put up all the songs I had, all the piano songs I had, and all the jazz songs I had. And then I started writing different things that maybe the libraries might like. Now, the cool thing is that it's okay to put all your stuff in these things. They are royalty free. You can take them out anytime you want with most of the libraries. Might take a month to take them out of some libraries, but some come out the minute you take it out. So if you ever get an opportunity for an exclusive deal with another song, you can just take it out of these. So I think of royalty-free stock licensing in these libraries as just like a place to put music. After I've done, let's say you put out an album and you've done your album marketing, and then the next step is you want to put this into these libraries to see if they can make you any money here. The stock licensing is a little quicker and faster to get into and get paid. And the exclusive licensing takes a little bit longer because you've got to get into libraries, and then those songs have to be found by music supervisors, and then they have to get in the show actually, and then it has to air, and then it has to pay out. So the payouts for all that can be longer. So before you get an exclusive deal or sign that contract, it can be in these royalty-free stock libraries making you some money. And I'm currently seeing about $400 to $500 a month just on this royalty-free stock music licensing. It's not enough to live on completely, but it's not a bad side income, side hustle, whatever you want to call it. So that's where I am with royalty-free stock music licensing. Let's move on here to something that you all know and love, and that is music artist income. Tried and true for over 300 years, I always tell everybody. I mean, this is what artists have been doing for, since the days of Beethoven, and even before that, into times with lots of other artists back in the old days, get out and perform. Musicians perform in front of people, and that's what happens. And then you sell stuff. And this is not like mind-blowing to any of you. All of you have likely done this in some form before. But one of the reasons I'm bringing up all these other incomes, licensing, and when we talk about production, we talk about publishing and different things, is because we all know that this has taken a hit, obviously because of COVID. But you can sell stuff, but you can't sell stuff if you can't find a place to go out and sing. And this has become a big problem, especially in the Christian artist world, I think. And I think there's a lot of reasons. Now, can everybody get out and sell music and do performing? Well, yes, but only 10% will do it enough to make any significant income that I've found. And I've been working with artists since the early to mid 90s. And it was a lot easier when CDs were hot sellers. But in the past 10 years, I have seen a real dip in the number of people that really work hard getting out in front of crowds and singing and or playing and selling product. And one of those reasons, obviously, recently has been COVID. That shut everybody down. But the other bigger difference has been the change in churches. Churches have just changed over the last 10 to 20 years, where it used to be that you could always find a Sunday night to go do a concert, or a Wednesday night to go do a special, or a Sunday morning to do a special. Well, there's already a special every Sunday morning. It's called the worship band. And they're not bringing music people into churches as much. Now, you can still hustle and find your way into it, but the odds that you're going to do that work, like I said, just most people make a product or make a CD or decide to do this, and then they get out and they go, wow, this is really, really difficult. And then they pretty much quit and decide to sell online, which we'll talk about in just a minute. The music business has changed. CDs have changed. We still don't know what we're going to do about this change. And one of the things I'm going to be talking about soon on my channel is, how do we replace the CD for live artists? What do you sell besides t-shirts that people can take the music with them that's physical? And so there's a problem there. And so that's one of the problems with music income, and why all of these music incomes should be looked at as we go and as you do your music, and not just the traditional, oh, I'm going to do performances and sell CDs. Well, that may not be enough. So, and most people either run out of money for the marketing or for, or they run out of interest. And then I wanted to talk about getting music to the marketplace. A lot of you know about some of these things, but in case you didn't, I wanted to go through them. First of all, there is CD Baby, which is selling to digital stores, getting your music to digital stores like Spotify and iTunes, getting your music to YouTube, and CDs with a question mark, as we just talked about. CD Baby should really start to think about changing their name, because CDs are a very small part of what they do these days. So they might want to take a page from Facebook and think about changing their name to the next thing. Distrokid is the company I've really started to use more than anything now for selling my music and getting I release a lot of music. Since I'm doing licensing, I'm writing new songs and producing new songs and putting new songs out every week. And so I am putting a lot more out than I could afford to do through CD Baby. So Distrokid is a one-time payment per year, and that goes to the digital stores and to YouTube. They do not sell CDs. I don't use them for YouTube. And I don't think I'm going to talk about Content ID here, but that's another thing that both CD Baby and Distrokid do, and some of the other places do. Song Trader, which is the next one on this list, they also do distribution. They also do licensing in a way, kind of like a sync agent, and they have other opportunities which include overhead music and YouTube Content ID and stuff like that. Bandcamp is more of a place to sell your product. There's really not many places to, since CD Baby went away from selling CDs online as a company, Bandcamp has turned into the place to sell your CDs and your downloads. So you can't even sell your downloads through CD Baby anymore. It has to be through iTunes or Amazon. So Bandcamp offers you, the artist, a way to put your CDs and downloads for sale and sell them individually yourself. And this could be a great way to launch too, by the way. If you're going to launch your album, Bandcamp is probably the best place to launch for sales of CDs and downloads. And then there's Bandzoogle, which is a website. Also, it does sales similar to Bandcamp. And there's other distributors like TuneCore. So, yeah, I talked about getting your music out to Spotify. And by Spotify, I'm just lumping everything in, Apple Music and Tidal and all the things in there. But as we all know, Spotify and Apple are basically the two main. Amazon's coming up a little bit, Amazon Music, but mostly these are the main streamings. And is it saving us? Is it going to rescue the music industry? The answer is yes, just not for you. For the labels, maybe, yes. But for you, the independent artist, it's going to be very difficult for you to make this a living and make an income from Spotify. You can do it. And it can be grown through ads. I follow several guys on YouTube who show you how to do Facebook ads to get people to your Spotify and all that kind of stuff when you launch singles. It's very involved, but it all can happen. It's just being an artist and making a living or any kind of income that you can live on through Spotify is a little iffy. It takes a lot of money to do ads, and it takes the interest to do social stuff, and it takes a lot of just get up and go to really do this. And because music is basically free to most people who are not us, they are just hearing it on TV, or they listen to it on free Spotify accounts or free different accounts like that. So that's why one of the things I'm telling artists to do and trying to get our artists on Creative Soul Records to do more is build online artist brand channels, because I think this is something whose time has come, especially YouTube, certainly all the Facebook possibilities, your personal Facebook, your artist page, and Facebook groups, which are very popular right now. And, Facebook is going to hit one demographic. And then you've got Instagram, which certainly hits like the next demographic down. And Facebook was smart to buy Instagram so that they would have that next demographic, because the Facebook demographic only gets older. But if you're speaking to your friends and family, you definitely need to be on Facebook. But if you're anywhere in the age from an artist from 20 to 40 or 45, you better be on Instagram to be reaching that demographic. And then there's TikTok, which is reaching the demographic on all the way down. And there's a lot of artists that are doing well on TikTok channels and starting their career that way. And it's actually not that difficult if you know what you're doing to start a TikTok. And then you might be looking at this kind of like, TikTok, are you crazy? It's not just it's now one of the main music ways that people are hearing music online. And so I highly suggest it. And then all of these can be grown through ads and through live. Actually, one of the best ways to sell more online is to do more live events, because the more live events that you do, the more people that are going to be long tail following you and finding you online and going to listen to you at Spotify and going to listen to you on all the other places and looking at your YouTube and all of that. So your online brand follows your live brand. So if you can do both of them, and you can do both of them well, you'll have quite a bit of luck there. Okay, so can you really do this? Are there people making money like this? And the answer is yes. There are YouTubers making millions, literally. All you have to do is watch a few of these people. Now, I'm not saying you can make millions doing this, but it is an income source for some people. If you can, not necessarily for music makers, but for music teachers. And all of you are music teachers. All of you are teaching or ministering in some way, bringing some ministry to the world. And that is really what people go on YouTube looking for. So the next thing is Instagram influencers. You know what that is. Basically, these are people doing the same thing they would do on YouTube, but doing it through an Instagram way. TikTok stars. We've already talked about these three things. it just basically takes consistency. You've got to post often, you've got to post consistently, and you've got to have other income streams that you can send people to your website, like ebooks, product sales, and affiliate links, which affiliate links just means links to a store or something like that. So that's all I really wanted to say about online artist brand channels. Basically, it's a second way as an artist to build an online kind of following, kind of build another way to get your music and message out. All right, so let's talk about music's oldest profession, music publishing. And this isn't something that's new. A lot of you are probably saying, boy, it would be great just to write songs and then pitch them to music publishers and have those songs do something. And this isn't something that has really changed. You know, I was a songwriter in my teens, going to Nashville, sitting across the chair, or I should say across the desk from, you know, a music publisher and trying to get my songs heard, and hopefully some artist would want to sing my songs. It's really something that we shouldn't try to bet on, because we think as songwriters that we have plenty of songs for people to use. The problem is people aren't really needing songs as much as they needed them before. We could be sitting across from a music publisher in Nashville, upstairs in his office, and downstairs people are sitting writing in writing rooms right then, writing the songs that he needs anyway. And that's one of the problems with trying to work in music publishing, even though music licensing is just another form of music publishing. Music libraries are basically music publishers. And so that's, to me, a better route for us as songwriters to get our music out to those people. It's always comes down to relationships, folks, always. And so anytime you can go to a conference or something and meet someone and see them and talk with them, it really helps. And so the days of writing songs for other artists, and everybody asks me this just about every day, how can I write a song and someone else use it? And the problem with that is most artists are writing their own songs these days. And if they're not writing their own songs, their producers are writing the songs or writing them with them. Or if they're not doing that, they're finding their songs from somewhere else. So that's why music publishing is a harder thing. And I think it's the better road in music publishing right now is licensing. And so that's why I talk about that a lot on my channel. But I am going to be talking to some music publishers on my channel, especially some from Word, and different companies in Nashville that I know, and kind of getting the lay of the land. But what they're always going to tell you is they're always looking for great songs, but even Word has a licensing division now and is really working that very hard with the songs that they have coming in. And so number 6 is music production. And you know, music production goes with all the things I've talked about already. You're going to have it produced at some point. And one of the things I did when I got tired of going back and forth to Nashville and going back and forth to listen to them say, well, you know, we really don't have an artist looking for the songs that you're writing. I was already producing music for other people, and so I decided I'm going to just start producing. And what it turned out to be is a career for 25 years and a company that became my music business. Instead of being a music business that was serving me, I was serving people. And, you know, like I said, it does encompass all the previous music income ideas, and it can bring somewhat of a consistent income. I started by working with people in my local area. Then I started working in Nashville and going back and forth. And eventually we had to move to Nashville. And I got very lucky to meet some of the top engineers and producers in Nashville and built a music production business there. And the income is, I say it can be a consistent income. It can also be a very inconsistent income. But quality work brings more work. And my producer, I don't know if he's still here, but and I can't see anybody right now, but you know that having a great demo, having great songs to show people can be more work. And any of you who are artists or writers, that is something that you can do, is to do some music production and help other people as an income source. So likely many of you are one of these things or have been one of these things in your music career. I've been a church music director several times. I do split up church music director and worship leader because I think they are sometimes different jobs. Many of the churches that you may work at have a worship leader and then have a music director over top. I put tech crew because I think that's a music part. I think a lot of times, I know many of my engineers or players in Nashville, they are part of tech crews in churches. There's music teaching in school, obviously, music teaching lessons in your home or at stores, selling music gear, selling music on eBay. These are things that can bring music income as well. God has given you natural music skills. He's given you life learned skills. He's given you education. He's given you church music upbringing like he did me, teaching and experience of just life, basically. And this presentation, other research you can do on YouTube and blogs and things like that. These are all things God has given you to make music income. You have to use it all. That's the main thing I want to get to you in this presentation, is that all the things I've talked about, those are all things that you can be doing. And I think these days we have to do them all. We can't just be doing we can't just be doing one little thing. We can't just be writing songs and saying, I'm just going to send them off to a music publisher and hope that publisher makes my life. And I'm guilty of that this year. I'm thinking, oh man, these songs are going to be in these music libraries, they're going to be found, put in movies and TV. That's not going to be enough. That is not going to be enough just to hope for that one thing. Because you can sit around and hope for a long time, and hope doesn't bring any income. And it's not all about money, but it is about, we all have to survive. And we all hope that whatever talents we have, whatever work we do, brings in some income. I've heard many clients just tell me, if it could only just bring in enough to continue doing the music work that I want to do. But that's going to take a little bit more than just making a song, putting it onto Spotify and telling people on Facebook and then sitting back and waiting. That's not going to really bring much income, unfortunately. That's why we talk about getting involved in sync and stock licensing, artist gigs and sales, online channels, music publishing income, music production income, teaching and leading jobs. All of these. I have done or am doing all of these at the same time, trying to build an income. And for the past 20 years, this is all that I've done, is these jobs in order to pay all of our bills. And my wife does work, and she's sometimes not worked, and it has, thank goodness, paid everything that we needed. God has taken care of us. But I've only done it by doing all of these. Licensing is kind of newer for me, but all the other ones are part of my daily work and part of my weekly and monthly income. And then there's a lot of free resources to make music income, and certainly my channel is full of that, but not just because of me. I have a lot of links on there to other channels in licensing, in sync licensing, and in stock licensing, other guys that I really love, and I have interviews with people on there. My website for artists is creativesoulonline.com, and Creative TV is where I do most of my TV. Now, if it sounds like I'm rushing, I am, because I want to in this share and just take some questions from everybody that you have. So everybody has been talking on here. I won't be able to read that. Does anybody just want to raise their hand and ask a question real quick? Miles, go right ahead.
My first question is, so I've been really wanting to join BMI or Ascap for a while, but what are the main differences between the two? I know they're different companies, but what's their differences?
I've been BMI since I started, and I prefer that. I think BMI is a one-time pay, and it's a little cheaper, I think. There's differences in how you also can be a publisher. With Ascap, they're really related, I think you have to be a publisher with Ascap. I don't know anything about Ascap, to be honest with you, my brother, because I've been BMI since the 90s, and it's worked for me, and I've never had to pay them another thing to work with them. I've recently joined in the last 3 years as a classical composer too, which is a completely separate deal, and they've been great with that, and they've always paid, and their stuff is very good. But I know plenty of ASCAP people who are super happy. I would suggest BMI for sync licensing and for licensing in general. I would suggest BMI for Christian music. There are other people who might suggest ASCAP for country music, but I don't really know. I haven't really done a study because I've been BMI this whole time. And usually I will ask my clients to go BMI just because I can help them if they need help, because otherwise I won't really be able to help them. But they both work pretty much the same. They're kind of tied together now through SongView. So you can go on this thing called SongView on either ASCAP or BMI and look up songs and get the information and stuff like that. But I like BMI. Do we have? Can we just do a raise hands of people who are on BMI in this chat? 1, 2, 3. Okay, it's changing on me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and how many ASCAP? Okay, so it's split a little bit more BMI than ASCAP in here. But I don't know if you should take that as a sign from God or not, but you can decide. And here's the thing. Are you near Nashville or close to Nashville or Music City?
Well, actually, I'm in North Carolina, which is technically your neighbor, so like yes and no. I mean, via flight, probably not too far, but like
go there, visit them, and they love talking with artists and writers. They love talking with writers, and you can plan appointments and go talk to each one. Okay, any other questions? Anybody else have a question? Thoughts? Ideas? Questions? Should I read the comments?
I have a question.
Okay, Tim, go ahead.
Yes.
Amen.
On your royalty-free license song, when you put those out, are those not on listed any other way? I guess I'm looking at, is royal-free different than like I have songs on CD Baby?
Yeah, and completely different.
So I can't use the same songs on that.
Yeah.
I can't.
CD Baby is a completely different thing. CD Baby is getting your music. You don't really have anything on CD Baby. You use CD Baby to get songs on Spotify and to get on all those things. CD Baby isn't a thing you have songs on anymore because they shut down their store. So they're really only what we call an aggregator now, and they get you out to this Spotify, they get you out to iTunes, and they get you out there just like Distrokid does, and that's their main thing that they do. That has no meaning or relationship to any kind of licensing. You can license, especially in the stock stuff where it's royalty free, you can do anything you want to, as long as they're your songs. Now, it's public domain songs. When you get into songs that are owned by somebody else, then you have issues.
Right. Okay.
Damon, do you have a question?
I did, as a matter of fact. I had posted it in the chat, but I'll ask it out loud. The conundrum that I find is where do you find the balance as an artist with very limited resources to begin with, to create art and then dedicate the time, effort, and energy that you need in order to do all of these things to generate the resources so that you're being able to have a lucrative career, quote unquote.
Monthly partnership support for your A.C.T ministry.
Amen.
That's one. Certainly one. Yeah, that is certainly something I've started in the past few years is money coming in through that. And like I just said, there's a reason I went through all those different sources, because they can all be income sources. The royalty-free licensing thing is something that just has become an income source for me to help pay the bills. And then production was how I did the rest. But listen, man, there were a lot of years of ramen noodle eating at the beginning of this whole thing, and and my family still remembers them. I had like special names, like special noodles and things like that. But the answer is you just find the time, Damon. I don't really know the other answer. If you are driven to do this more than anyone else, and in any kind of art, there's no one else who's going to do it. There's no one who's going to care as much as you do. There's not about what you're doing. There's a lot of YouTubes that talk about this stuff, the lifestyle of being, of doing this, how to dedicate some time to marketing and some time to creating. And it's a cycle. I talk about it in one of my videos where I talk about it's composing, pitching, getting them signed, and then back to composing again and pitching and getting it signed. And it's just a never ending cycle. And that's the life. If you're a producer or an artist, it's artist producing it, putting it out, marketing it, and going back and writing more songs and putting it out and marketing it. But you're right, man. The marketing is hard, and it's hard to find that time when you want to be creative. You want to be creative and do the fun, creative stuff, but you've also got to love that, or you've got to find somebody to do it for you. But then you're just paying somebody to do work for you, and you're not getting what you want, which is some kind of balance in the workflow and in the money. It just takes. Here's a really important tip: make to-do lists and really follow that. Make yourself follow these lists. I have list upon list. I use a program called Evernote, and I just look. That's the first thing I look at in the day. Before I look at email, I look at my Evernote list and say, what am I doing today? What are the 2 or 3 things I've got to get accomplished today? There's great books on that. I don't have them handy, but you might want to look into that time management stuff. How do you get in and get those things done? And find that time of your day that you're only going to be focused on this. Maybe I have something called Writing Wednesday. I only write on Wednesdays. No pitching or anything else on Wednesdays. I write on Wednesdays.
I do want to make a comment that because I've written songs and recorded them, and I've used sometimes this for A.C.T. people. We have sponsorships, and I offer a free song for a certain sponsorship, $20, $50, they get a free song. And I think I've made a lot more money off songs that way than I have just put them out on the market.
Yeah. And that's becoming, there's people trying to sell me on the idea of NFTs and things like that, which I don't even know anything about, but licensing is just kind of a new way. I'm looking at Becky's question here about, I've heard that just to take the songs we already have created and start and take those to stock music libraries. Absolutely. That's what I said. I don't know where you went, but that's where I said what I did. I took all the albums I already had. Some of you may know an artist named Frances Strauss. She's been one of my artists for a long time. And Frances and I just started this with her albums. Now she's busy getting her Christmas show ready, but I am taking all her music right now and trying to get it in these stock libraries to get her in. It's all very highly produced because she's produced the last 5 records, or her last 3 main records have been produced with me in Nashville. So pretty high-end stuff with high-end players. And that is going to get her in some of these libraries. And then she's got the ability to create at home. She can create music and piano, especially piano tracks, and get those in those stock libraries and see if she can get some what we call passive income. You put your music in there one time, you never have to do anything. There's no marketing it. They either they do the marketing or you tag it well enough that people can find it. And then they can download that music and use it. So yeah, absolutely. Somebody had their hand up. Who had their hand up just now? Miles? I thought I saw somebody on the other side. Go ahead, Miles.
I did. I had 2 last questions. They're both related to royalties. One is that I am trying to get into, like I said, music production. I've done one song, but that was just for a friend. That was a simple contract. She paid me up front. But how does that work? Because you're making a track for somebody, but like, do you still own it? Like, how do royalties work from that? And then my second question is that because I also am a classical musician and I'm a performer, and I'm trying to get composing, I heard that classical royalties also work completely different from like regular royalties. Is that true? Or is that...
Yeah, I had to sign up specifically on BMI as a classical composer, and I'm glad I did, because I did one performance at the Disney Center here in Orlando, and I had and it paid $75 per song, $75 for the song to my writer's royalty and to my publisher's royalty. So I made $150 just for premiering a song there. And so because classical is built only on, PRO means performance rights. So they're anytime the song is performed, that's what they're collecting. So that doesn't just mean performed on radio or TV. It means performed on a stage. It probably started that way and performed. So being performed on a stage is kind of separate from radio and TV and those things. And yes, you do have to register, but you don't have to pay more. It's included in your membership, but you'll have to register separately, and they have different forms for the classical. And now, as far as your production thing, any producer who's producing something for somebody, if you're being paid by them and you did not write the song, the person who is paying owns the production. The end. Unless you have another deal with them. Now, are you co-writing the song?
No, that song, she wrote the lyrics that I made the background track for.
Did she pay you? Did she pay?
Yes, she did. She paid me $70. It was just that was my first. I've learned from that since then. But
this is in my business. I've always thought of like owning a studio. When you own a studio and somebody comes in, they're paying you hourly for the studio, and whatever you do for them, if you have no writing in it and they're just paying you to record them, and then they walk out, then they walk out with the CD and they've paid, and they never the twain shall meet again or have to meet again. And any of you who ever work with a producer, if you're paying them to produce you and you don't have any other contract and they're not involved in your songs at all, you should own everything that's done at the end. That's pretty standard, I think. That's how I've run my business for 21 years or 25 years as far as producing people. They pay me to do a job, I do it for them, and then that's what happens. So, yeah. Any other questions about any of this stuff? I can look through here.
I've got a question, if I could, real quick. I don't know how many of you have tried doing something on YouTube, like I've done lyric videos of some of my songs and put them out there for people to enjoy in the seasons and that kind of thing. Has anyone ever experienced some pushback from YouTube on that? I've put one of my published songs, I've copyrighted and put it out there, and YouTube came back and said, "You're not the publisher of this, and so we're not going to send you any money."
Did you run it through CD Baby or someplace like that? Did you already have it through CD Baby?
Yes, I did.
You know who the owner is? You. What happens
that's kind of what I thought.
If you put it through CD Baby and you check the YouTube content ID thing, they call it YouTube ID or whatever they call it, they're going to flag your own video if you put your music in it. So that's a good thing. You're getting paid for that play. It's not going to you're not going to be able to monetize your video, which likely you have to have a really big channel, like 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours to qualify to get your YouTube channel monetized. But the money from that video, if there ever is any, is coming to you because it was your music that was claimed. So I have a lot of artists ask me that. They say, "Oh, I'm freaking out. I got a YouTube claim," which is not a bad thing. A claim means that the fingerprinting software has heard that music belongs to someone else, and that music usually belongs to them, and they're freaking out about it, but there's not really a need to.
Great, thank you for that update. That helps confirm what I was thinking, so appreciate it.
Yeah, and keep making those. We do a lot of lyric videos, and I don't necessarily think they get a ton of play. Really, you're going to have better luck with cover tunes, like worship tunes and things like that. And you can cover those. You'll often get a copyright claim on it. But now they've changed that on YouTube, and it just says, "This has been claimed by the owner of this, and we will pay the owner." And as a person who's trying to get, I guess, a YouTube channel built, you're fine with that. You want that owner to get built. You're not trying to make money off of their song. You just want to get some marketing attention on your YouTube videos by doing covers. And so in that way, it's fine. It didn't used to be like that, but it's kind of turned out to be like that now. Anybody found this helpful today? I mean, has this been anything I've said? I do a lot more focused videos on my site. So if you want to go to Make Music Income, that's the only 3 words you need to remember in that order. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, or Facebook, or those main 3 places. and makemusicincome.com will take you to my YouTube channel. And that's really where the concentration is right now, is just in teaching and talking about these things in detail. I'll be moving into the artist stuff after I get done with sync licensing. I'm doing a lot of work, video work in sync licensing, and talking about it right now. And I mainly only talk about my experiences. I really don't talk about things that I haven't done. So when I talk about being an artist, I'll talk about my experience as an artist and my experience with my artists that I produce and market. And when I talk about publishing, I'll talk about my publishing and my experiences at BMI and things like that. And when I talk about production, I'll talk about my production company. And only because that's the best way I can share with you. There are tons of people on YouTube who can share with you information, but I'm going to share with you the real stuff that I deal with, because you're most helpful to deal with the real stuff. If someone's talking about stuff and they say, yeah, man, I heard that this happens and this happens and this happens, that's not going to help you learn really anything that's going to help you. So be careful about that. But try to find people who are talking from their experience, good or bad. It could be bad experience, and that's okay too, to hear about. Like I have a video about taxi, and I talk about the things in taxi I don't like and that don't work for me personally. Doesn't mean they won't work for you, but they don't work for me. So anybody else have a question or a comment in the chat they want to talk about?
Just one more thing, Eric. This is kind of a trend that I'm seeing, and I won't mention any names, but there seem to be a lot of people and organizations in Nashville and other places too, but primarily Nashville, where, they say, well, we really our heart is just to help Christian artists, launch their careers in songwriting or as recording artists. We will, we'll help you get going. We want to write songs with you, everything else. By the way, that'll be $5,000, please. So I get that. If that's your business model, that's fine. And I understand, providing content. Lots of people do this, and they provide great content, and that's the relationship building kind of thing. But it's just kind of like breaking into co-writing with people, and is this just another form of pay to play? You can go and write with this person in Nashville, but they're going to charge you for something that hopefully will make you both some money down the road. Nobody wants to work on the back end.
Yeah, and I've been part of that world, although I've been more of you get what you pay for, because I help people do actually production, and they pay for the production and pay me to help them do that. And then they pay me to market them because they don't want to do the marketing. So in a way, I've been a little bit part of that, but I think what you're talking about is our heart is to lead artists. And you're going to find this in the licensing world too, where you're going to find a lot of people. Larissa, I don't know if you've seen this out there, but all these companies that teach music licensing, and they have these webinars and then the webinar is completely free. Come on, and you wouldn't believe how many people are on these webinars. Thousands of people are on these 2-day webinars, and then they hit you at the end with the $4,000 package that you can get to learn music licensing, because they've done music licensing. I'm kind of like in the reverse personally. I'm trying to get out of clients and get into production. I mean, get back into being a composer again and get my songs making income. I'd rather the songs be making income than me be making income. But because I've been teaching this for so many years and been leading artists for so many years, that I still do this. But you are absolutely right. And you do have to be careful, folks. If you're paying someone, make sure they are providing a service to you. In other words, I do know people who co-write for money. That's not usual, by the way. That's not the Nashville way. Writing in a co-write, it should be free, because you're both working towards something. So if you meet somebody and they say, yeah, let's meet over at Word. Word has 5 beautiful writing rooms downstairs. And, let's meet over at Word and let's write songs. And then they say, but I'm $50 an hour. Well, that's not something only you can make that decision. I mean, it's not like it's not a crime. It's just they're trying to have their time paid for. And likely you, as a complete unknown, if you are a complete unknown, they might look at this as nothing's going to happen with this. This is just, I'm losing this time that I could be working on my songs or working on something that's connected to a label. So I need to charge for my time. And they may not even see it that way as a scam at all or as any kind of thing. And I don't even think it's a scam. I just think you have to decide if you're going to pay for play or not. Taxi is no different than that. You have to pay $200 to $300 a year and $5 per pitch to be part of their what they call briefs. And briefs are basically a thing they send out and say, this film is looking for this kind of song, or this TV show is looking for these kind of songs. And you can apply to those as many as you want, and they have good ones, and they're very detailed, which are briefs are hard to find. I mean, you don't just find briefs on websites all over the place. And so it's tempting to pay for it. I've paid for it in the past, and it, depending on how hard you work, and I see you, Miles, depending on how hard you work, it's not, Damon, it's not only different than Sonic Bids, it's no different than, what's the other one that's like that? I was just talking about it. Song Trader does this a little bit, but they don't cost that much really, and you can have a free membership. You have to really be careful with these things you get involved with, because that's how they're making their money. And it almost feels to me like they're not making their money on music anymore. So why am I paying them if they're not in the business anymore, and they're only in the business? Music X-Ray is a good one. They're only in the business of making money off of me. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to kind of get away from over the past few years and get more into the licensing thing, where me and a partner are splitting something 50-50, and I'm not charging them anything, but they are, paying for some of the costs of a song that either I wrote or we co-wrote, and then we are pitching it together, and we'll split 50-50 anything that comes in. So it just depends. You have to just really suss those things out yourself, but they certainly do exist. You're not wrong. Are you saying that they are really bad, or?
I'm just thinking it's always be sure to drink your Ovaltine at the end of the thing. You get the decoder ring and you wait for, Little Orphan Annie's instructions, and then a crummy commercial. That's the webinar thing. Is I've probably done my last webinar where I'm going to sit through, an hour of somebody talking about stuff that's very general information, good information, helpful information. But at the end of the day, it is, well, if you want to write with this guy who wrote with these people, then, you come to our this and that, and it's going to be, thousands of dollars. And again, I'm a complete unknown. I mean, I get that. At the same time, I guess, it's just a matter, like you said, with relationships and just finding that person who says, you know what, I actually think you have some promise or whatever. Let's work together. Let's develop you as an artist, and we'll both benefit in the end.
Exactly. And here's how you take advantage of those webinars. Don't give them up. Don't give up on them, because they can teach you things you don't know. And they can help you network by finding a music supervisor or something they may be interviewing in this webinar to get you to watch it. And that music supervisor may have a need that you can fill. And if you have that, then you can look that music supervisor up after the webinar. Maybe you wait 2 weeks and you approach the music supervisor with a nice brief email saying, hey, I have a great song I want you to listen to, and here's the link on SoundCloud. You're not sending them, by the way, if you send stuff to music supervisors or anybody, even music publishers, do not send MP3s or especially WAV files. Send them a link to a SoundCloud or to Disco or someplace like that where they can see a link that all they have to do is click on and go to a page and listen, and then close the page. They don't have to download anything like that. And keep your emails really short. I talk about that in where and how to pitch to music supervisors on I just did a video on that, so that's why it's fresh in my mind. But use those webinars, because they can be valuable, but don't fall for the pitch. Unless you just got the money to burn. And I know people have money to burn, but if you don't have money to burn, use the webinar for the information. I mean, just like this is all free information, and anytime you can find free information. Taxi just is doing their road rally this weekend, and it's only for members, but they did a bunch of prequel videos where they did interviews with tons of music supervisors and publishers and all this kind of stuff. And that's free on YouTube right now. YouTube is a treasure trove, folks, and you should be really using it, because you can sit there. I watch about 2 hours of YouTube every night before I go to bed because that's my study time, Damon. That's when I do my studying and get my information and save all that stuff. And I've gotten license deals through just watching videos like that. I've found 2 of my main music libraries, one Sony BMG, just by watching videos, dude. So absolutely watch those things. Miles.
I swear this is my last question.
That.
Sir?
Miles and then Jervis.
Okay, I swear this is my last 2 questions. Like a 2 and 1. They're both really simple. The first one is still back to production. It's about like I remember when I did that song for my friend. After I produced it first, she said, "Okay, now we need to go get it mastered," and I didn't know about that. So my question is, does mastering, if you do that, does that also fall under royalties? Is doing masters for people a good source of income? No. Okay.
Just a service, dude. That's a service you're getting paid to do, and if you're getting paid to do a service, once you're done doing that service, you were paid and they move on. Again, there are times when a producer is included in a contract where you say, I'll produce you for this much money and this much royalties. So that can be in the deal. And if you want to put that in the deal, and if you're brave enough to ask a client for that, sometimes a producer can be add to the music in a way that's almost like adding to the writing. And so if, like a lot of times, the reason I charge when I produce somebody, I throw in writing for free, but I get a piece of the writing if we co-write it. I mean, that's kind of understood. So if I work with Sarah and we're working on a tune and she has got lyrics, but she doesn't have any music, and in a producing session or a kind of a writing session, I write the music, well, then I'm going to be part of the royalty on that. But I've had producers be part of, actually, producers in the big music world usually get 3 points on everything they produce, which means 3%. So, that's been a standard in the music industry, but it's not really in the independent industry unless you have a contract with your client that says so, And guess what? I wouldn't want 3 points of an independent project, dude. What are you gonna do? Chase those pennies down? No. Mm-mm.
Thank you. I made the mistake. That was a rookie mistake. I made the mistake that signing a contract saying I wouldn't ask for royalties or get royalties in the future. So I don't want to do that again. It was for a friend, so I'm not worried about that.
Again, unless that's going to be run through a PRO like BMI or something, you don't want to be part of the royalty stream, because what are you going to do? Ask them for it? Are you going to depend on them to pay you 2% of a song for the next 20 years? I mean, but if they register through BMI and you're registered as a co-writer for 25%, let's say, because you produced it and you added a bunch to the composition through that way, then you register at your PRO, and then BMI pays you automatically if there's anything that's ever made from the song. Then that's the way I would do it.
Thank you. And this is my last question. It's really simple. How do you learn about music production? Like I'm a classical musician, so like music production is like really new for me. It's like foreign, complete. It's like a foreign language. What's up, sir?
Oh, Damon said he had to run. I was just saying, thanks.
Yeah. It's like a foreign language. How do you learn about it? Like, what do you do?
Well, you're talking about music production?
Yes. Like, how do you learn to be a music producer, or lack of better words?
Do it a lot.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to talk about that on my channel, but the bottom line is you have to produce a lot of music. How do you learn to be a Finnish carpenter? Well, you do a lot of Finnish carpentry. And you learn from another producer. Maybe a lot of producers in Nashville sat at the foot of another producer when they first got to Nashville for a long time until they did the actual producing or engineering or whatever. Or you just produce a lot of things in your home, and then you move out into the local studios and start producing, and then you move to Nashville and start producing. And that's basically what I did. I produced out of my home, and then I started producing in local studios in Lexington, and then eventually I started producing in Nashville after I had built clients. And finding clients is a whole nother deal. It's an online thing. That's having recordings that you can show somebody and they go, wow, I really love the sound of this. Will you make something for me? And can we work together? And so, you learn by doing, you get better by doing, and you get more business by doing, because the more you do, the more you can show in order to get a next client. So, yeah. Larissa says she interned at a recording studio when she was in college and learned from some of the best producers, because she wanted to be a producer. And that's exactly what you do. The apprentice and master thing is not dead, folks. We don't hear those words anymore. But I learned from another producer how to be a producer for income. I went and eventually took over his studio and watched him do it. How he worked with clients that did jingles, how he worked with clients that did TV work, how he did work with clients that were making albums. And I learned by watching him and kind of learning from him, and eventually bought his business from him. So that is, you got to apprentice by someone. Damon Curtis said he took audio engineering certifications. That's another way, is to, that's, by the way, I prefer an engineering certification to an engineering school, like a Full Sail or something, even though I've been to Full Sail here in Orlando and they are great and they are an amazing facility, but they're not $80,000 amazing. Okay. Whereas Damon probably spent just a fraction of that to get an audio certification. And guess what? That's all you need to spend, because you can teach yourself Pro Tools. You don't need to go and spend $80,000 to learn Pro Tools. So work in your home, learn in your home, make tons of recordings, Miles. Just make them like crazy. Show people and get their thoughts. Show me, send things to people. Yes, MTSU, Sarah, is an amazing program. It's right outside Nashville. I would probably suggest that over a Full Sail, because you're so close to Nashville, a real music center. Orlando is technically a music center because of Disney and stuff like that, but I've been very disappointed in the amount of talent here compared to Nashville, but that's probably to be expected. But yeah, look in the comments. Larissa's talking about some things she's done to be to learn producing and things like that. But I think you learn by doing, you learn by watching. I think you learn by watching webinars. I think you learn by watching YouTube videos. And some of the guys that I follow have academies that are not very expensive. I mean, that teach you how to do you work in Logic or Pro Tools or what? Or Reaper or what?
Right now, I'll be honest, I'm working on GarageBand. Like, I'll just
GarageBand. Hey,
yeah.
I've had people send me GarageBand tracks that I can't believe that were done on GarageBand. They're great. And GarageBand is just Logic Lite. It's very close to Logic in a lot of ways. You can open the GarageBand files right in Logic because they're so closely related now. And so if you've got GarageBand, even on your laptop or on your iPad or whatever, it's great. I used it the other day in a writing session, and I was shocked by how great it's gotten. And so, yeah, if you start on a Mac, definitely use GarageBand. If you start on a PC, Reaper is a good choice. It's not bad. I've just been into it a little bit recently, but yeah, and then also, come on, Studio Pro. I finally remembered it this time. Studio Pro is another great one that has a free version that you can download and use to kind of get going with. I've never used FL Studio, and I can't get into Ableton. Everything's backwards on Ableton for me. As a Logic guy, everything's on the wrong side. But and also Ableton kind of started as like this loop program, and now it's kind of built more into a full-featured DAW, and I've just never used it. And Pro Tools I hate. Pro Tools is the industry standard, but I just don't like it. It took a long time for MIDI to become really well integrated. It's still not that great integrated in Pro Tools, but it's better now. Yeah, Digital Performer is more like Logic, I think. And I know many people who can't move away from Digital Performer. Once they're a DP person, they are forever. And I think the same thing is with Logic. I think once you're a Logic person, and I was a Logic person way back before way back when it was still on PC and Mac, and then before Apple bought it. So, well, I could sit here and answer questions all day and talk music all day, but it's getting to be 6 o'clock, and I know they probably don't want me going this long. If any of you want to just email me. You can email me at lots of different places, but Make Music Income is probably the easiest to remember. And that's probably the one that's going to teach you the most right now, as in these things. I am really doing a lot about licensing right now, but it's eventually going to move into artistry and into publishing and into production. And then I'll be talking about everything all the time, all of these things, because like I said, and from the beginning and at the end, I believe you should be doing all of the things. I almost said I was going to call my channel All the Things, because you should be doing all of the things. You should be doing licensing. You should be doing artistry. You should be doing publishing. You should be doing production, all of these things. And yes, Sarah, please email me. Anybody wants me to take a look at their channel or your music, please just email me at makmusicincome@gmail.com, and or come see my videos and get in touch. Everybody, I'd love to listen to your stuff and talk with you more offline. Larissa, I'd love to know what's going on out there in LA and hear about is that one of your films behind you? That's awesome.
That's my new documentary, or current documentary film that was on PBS. So yeah.
Cool. Congrats. Fantastic. Did you also score it?
No, I had the marvelous Nathan Wong, who's a fantastic, well-known composer, but I did place a couple of my own songs in there.
Well, that's cool. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time today, and let's all make music income. What do you say?